The Spot Track Podcast, talking sports contracts, the salary cap, and business of sports.
Well, everybody, welcome to the SpotTrack.com podcast. I'm Kevin Sylvester, along with Paul Peck. We're at BuffaloSportsPage.com, the home market for the founder of SpotTrack.com, Mike Giannetti. And, Mike, we have a plethora of things. We're going to start NBA.
Yeah.
NBA, because Houston, there is a problem. More than one problem, right?
Yeah. Wow, right? I can't believe it's the middle of December and we're still having this conversation. This isn't a fluke anymore. This is a real deal situation.
Wasn't just Carmelo Anthony's contract.
Who's still there, by the way.
Right.
Yeah. They're waiting 4 more days. December 15th, they can officially trade him, so I expect him to be a Laker at that point.
By the way, FanDuel, take him off of being an option.
Is he really?
Yes.
I feel bad for the guy. He's the J.R. Smith of the West.
Things just never got any better from after that Syracuse National Championship celebration.
Oh, they did. No, he was
had
great
like
with
two
the Nuggets.
20-point games this year.
Yeah.
Right.
And then they just decided, you're done with us. What are we doing here? You're the second worst team in the Western Conference. Anybody should be able to get a shot right now. Right? I mean, he can't play defense, but nobody on that team plays defense. That's problem number one. But here's the thing. They knew that coming into the season. This wasn't about we're going to be a balanced team where we're going to lull you to death, and then they're going to score 140 and outscore everybody and win, because that's what works. That's what Golden State does. That's what Oklahoma City has done to maintain themselves. That was the plan, but they can't score. They're scoring 108 points a game with basically the same guys. I mean, the guys they lost were defensive minded, so you knew they were going to take a hit there, but it's just people figured them out. Right?
Yeah.
They took an offseason and watched a lot of video, figured out that they switch on everything, and this is how you defend that. And clearly, they've been outsmarted all year and outworked. That's the thing, right? You've got a couple of guys. Chris Paul is aging. He's not going end to end anymore like he used to be able to do.
I never thought he was a great shooter, anyways.
No, probably not a great shooter. But you've got James Harden. You've got Harden for that,
right?
Who should be scoring 45 every night and. Maybe it's an effort thing with him. I don't know. Where are we with James? Where are we with Harden? Harden's contract hasn't even started yet.
Right.
It hasn't even kicked in yet. He's got 4 gigantic seasons coming of money. And if they have to rebuild this thing, holy cow, right?
Well, you look at Harden, and now, granted, I haven't watched much of the Rockets this year. But in the past, I mean, it's been every time down the floor, right?
Yeah.
90%. It's like LeBron, right? It all goes through him,
right?
All the time. He's got to touch the ball.
But there's a mechanism for that working in LeBron and in a few teams.
Sure,
right?
Yes, but LeBron is built differently than Harden, and I think can take the pounding that Harden's taking He's taking a pounding with all the penetration that he has.
Yeah.
And, man, it always looks like he travels when he steps back.
It always does.
Right?
That is his move, and that move is unguardable. But if you're not hitting him, I'm not sure he has a plan B now.
Right, because if he's not hitting him...
and he's not going to the hoop...
Right.
Is there a bit of a superstar syndrome that's going on in the NFL, in the NBA a little bit, where guys establish themselves and they reach that superstar status and then they get paid like it, and teams think they're untouchable, and then maybe they weren't really that player, and maybe they weren't never really as good as people thought they were, but then now what do you do? I mean, like you talk about, Harden has been a great player, but there are flaws in his game, and his inability to lead the team around him sometimes appears to be a problem. But what are you going to? You're stuck now. There's nothing you can do now.
Yes, there is. Of course there is. But the NBA wants that. They promote that, and it's to their credit. It's a fantastic league because they turn these guys into on-court and off-court superstars and brands, and that's to their credit.
But if that was erroneously done, then you can't get out of it.
The question is, can James Harden handle that? And I think he can in the right set of circumstances. This is not one of them, right? I don't think this guy's used to losing like this, and I know Chris Paul's not. Chris Paul's been on winning teams for the last 10 years at least. Obviously, he started off on a bad team. But here's the thing. You need gritty, talented, skilled players down the rest of that roster to account for that. And they don't have that. There's injuries going on. There's some things like that. They lost to Trevor Ariza, who's 33 anyway, but they don't have anybody to watch their back right now, right? So if Harden's not hitting the step-back jumper, and if Chris Paul can't go end-to-end anymore, who is it? Who is the effort guy? Who's the Draymond Green type player, on this team that when the superstars are having off nights or off months, whatever's going on here, who is that guy? They just don't have it.
They don't have it.
They just don't have
right.
it. And a guy who can do everything but is never going to be that superstar, is never going to have the brand that a James Harden.
But sort of
will.
once you go down that road, you there's no U-turns on those things. That's
right.
That's
what I'm worried about.
challenge.
What happens next year when James Harden is worth $40 million and Chris Paul's worth $40 million, and what are we doing there?
And they're $20 million players.
So here's how I want to end this conversation.
The Paul contract to me was a huge mistake.
And there's 2 more years on it.
Yeah, that was a huge mistake.
Yeah.
Harden, I get. The Chris Paul contract, re-signing with that to me was basically like, well, we're not going to be able to get anybody like him in free agency, so let's hang on to him. But there's a lot of miles on that Maserati. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
a lot.
I completely agree with
I
that.
also think that as you pointed out, Mike, we live in a superstar generation. It's the leagues want to find the next one. The fans want the next one. He's the one who sells the jerseys and all that stuff. It's in every sport. You create sometimes these superstars based on one season or whatever, and not everybody is that. There's a reason why we call them superstars. There are not very many of them, and what happens is teams fall in love with these guys, or they buy into the creation, and oh my God, our fans demand that we give this guy all the money that he wants, and he's our guy, and then you realize that he isn't that guy, and now you're like, oh, what do we do now?
Well, the problem is you need, to Mike's point earlier, you need 2 other guys to go with your superstar.
Let me piggyback on that, because let's just put them versus Golden State here, because that's what they're doing, right? I mean, that's how they're building themselves to try to be better than that.
Right.
But they're not even close to that.
No.
Because here's what's going on. James Harden at this stage and Chris Paul at his stage are essentially the same player.
They're the same player. Thank you.
So, yes, you have 2 superstars, but even if they can figure out how to play together, which they did last year, that's pretty easy to figure out defensively.
Yes.
You're only having to stop one mechanism on the court. Whereas you look at Golden State, and at any point in time, Kevin Durant can be a 5, a 4, a 3, a 2, or a 1. That's unguardable. And you don't scheme for Kevin Durant. So you throw that with Klay Thompson, who's sitting over there waiting for the ball, and Curry, who could do anything, take it to the hoop on you, or step across the half court line and shoot. When you've got that variety of superstar, that's indefensible. But I think the Rockets are just easy to figure out right now.
They're both 1s.
Yeah.
Paul and Harden are both 1s.
Or both 2s. Right, neither of them want the ball at some point, or everybody wants the ball at some point.
Yeah, they're great with the ball in their hands and bringing it up the court and creating. Whereas, just my opinion, they both have to have the ball.
Yeah,
and where Curry can play without the ball, even though he's great with the ball, he can play without the ball. I think better than Harden can play without the ball.
Here's my last observation on this, in that, sometimes when you combine superstar, the Warriors have done it in ways that nobody else has done it before. And I think that their ability to create chemistry among superstars is what everybody is trying to replicate, right? So you've got your superstar, you go get another one, and then all of a sudden maybe they quite weren't, or maybe superstar number 1 isn't working with number 2 and doesn't want to share the spotlight. And I just read this story this past week, and it made me think of it. There's a big controversy in Chicago with the Bulls about how much they're now being asked to practice or whatever, and the coach, Boylan, who coached under Popovich, is trying to do it the same way Popovich did it, and basically the players are like, you're not Popovich. Yeah. You didn't win like Popovich. If we're in San Antonio, we'll do practice for 2.5 hours because it's Popovich that wants to do it, and he's got a track record. You're not that guy. And I feel like sometimes that happens with players as well, too.
Yes, but I'd also go one step further, because even Popovich isn't being Popovich right now, right? He's not getting these no-namers to come together and be demons on the court. There's also got to be a guy on the court who can act as that middleman, right? As that voice, that in the huddle voice. That he had Duncan for all those years. Right. There couldn't have been a better admiral, to take a David Robinson term away, right, on the court to be that middleman between the harsh Popovich and the youth or guys who are just grinding through a long season. That, to me, that doesn't exist. And maybe that doesn't exist in Houston right now. Maybe Chris Paul is not being that guy right now. I wouldn't assume Harden would be that guy. It would be Paul of the 2. And maybe there's just a disconnect within that team right now that, whether it's D'Antoni's system is just being figured out or if there's not the kind of on-court leadership. But let's just finish on this note because we're getting close to trading time here in the NBA, which is super fun. It's getting more fun every year. We've sort of discussed what to look forward to with Houston, which is just a lot more money for maybe not a lot of production. What do they do right now in the next 2 months? Are they just going to rip this thing up? Are they going to go out and try to bring, are they going to drop 4 first-round picks on some other superstar to try to make this thing work for the rest of the year and squeak into the playoffs? What would you do right now? Do you mail in 2018?
Boy, that's a great question.
Tough to do that once we're sitting here in early December.
Yeah,
right.
I think that's. I think you let the play. I think you deliver that message to your players. Like, look, we're going to figure out what we're going to do. If you guys can pick up some wins and show that you're going to get to the playoffs, well, then I'll do something. Yeah. If you're going to keep doing this, then I'm not going to give up the future. For this, not going to happen. So
it's going to be really interesting.
I think it's definitely a wait and see.
All right. Let's talk a little football, Mike. You got something on your mind about quarterbacks in the NFL and how they were acquired this season.
Yeah, it was a rare offseason, which we discussed in length on this show before. We had free agents. There were some trade pieces. Obviously, the rookie class that came in and who are actively playing. So there's sort of like a 10 or 11, maybe 12 guys who are new to their current team, but are out there to some degree and are making an impact. And it just sort of begs the question of comparison, right? It's what worked better, right? If you're looking at the set of rookies, the Mayfields, the Darnolds, the Allens, the Rosens, Lamar Jackson versus Alex Smith, Kirk Cousins, Case Keenum, and then you've got Bradford, Taylor, and Bridgewater, who obviously didn't work out.
Did you think of this topic before or after the Monday night game the other night?
Oh, before.
Okay.
This is before I even sat down with Kirk Cousins.
I think after the Monday night game, you got a lot of people questioning.
But you weren't beforehand? I know
absolutely.
his numbers are,
but to see him look that bad on national TV in a crucial game.
But if you know Kirk Cousins, he's always been that bad in prime time.
Right. It's yet again his inability to win big games.
He doesn't beat plus 500 teams,
right?
Ever,
right?
That's just his thing.
Which everybody knew, but they still gave him 80 plus million.
The Alex Smith one worked out until he got Theismann.
Was he good? Was he good?
Good enough.
I don't know.
They were a playoff team at the time, right?
He was what he is. He was what he is.
Right. That's right.
Who's, slightly better than Tyrod.
Okay. So were they better off just drafting somebody?
Well, not if they wanted
That's
to.
That's the point I want to get to here.
But not if they wanted to make the playoffs.
He had him in position to be a playoff team, which Alex Smith always does, but then never much beyond that, which is why the Chiefs got rid of him.
The argument to a team to look at to support Mike's question there is the Baltimore Ravens.
But they're the only one.
They're the only one, and
none of these other rookies are making the playoffs.
But they went to the rookie because of injury.
Yeah.
And Flacco's out. Jackson comes. He's 3-1. Lamar Jackson almost beats Kansas City.
My goodness,
right?
Yeah.
Almost beats Kansas City, but we'll have to wait and see how that bears out.
I don't think he's winning games either.
No, their defense is. Their defense is incredible.
He's sort of the anomaly in this whole conversation, right?
Right. Because he's not passing the ball very well.
No,
Lamar isn't.
No, not really. Mayfield looks great. Darnold's going through growing pains. He looks good. Sam Darnold's going to be a good quarterback.
He's got the tools, yes.
He looks good.
He looks like what a quarterback is supposed to look like. Put it that way.
Yeah, the first two quarterbacks in the draft. Mayfield, by the way, when all these people thought Darnold was going to be number one, Mayfield has dispelled that by showing what he can do. He's a gamer.
Yep.
He reminded people of Brett Favre. You can see why. The guy's a player.
I'll say this, though. Good on Cleveland.
Yeah.
Cleveland took a lot of flack for their drafting over the past few years, but they have used free agency and the trade tool to put a really nice team around him. They didn't bottom out and then say, here's our quarterback, let's try to build this thing back up like the Bills have done. And that's just a fact. And to some degree, the Jets did that as well. The Jets had some defensive players like the Bills do, but in terms of offensive weapons, the Jets and the Bills have done no favors for Sam Darnold or Josh Allen. The Browns didn't do that. The Browns said, not only are we getting Baker Mayfield, but we're going to go pull Jarvis Landry out of our AFC East rival,
right.
Dolphins, And there's a stud tight end. There's 3 good wide receivers.
And that's a
good
product of
offensive
one
line.
win over the previous 2 seasons as well.
They were able to draft, but they didn't just throw water to the wind, right? They actually put some thought into this. Finally, right after quarterback after quarterback after quarterback, they said we're going to bottom out. We're going to get ourselves to number 1. There's this. We've identified this guy, but they went out and they spent money to secure him, is what I'm saying, and it's to their credit. So I think part of Mayfield's success has to be that there's actually a formidable team around him right now, which these other guys really can't say.
Yeah, you know what? The interesting thing, too, is you look at the players they shed, and you're thinking, how could they be successful offensively? Gordon, gone.
Yeah.
Coleman, who was a first-round pick, but he's been a bust. The running
Carlos
back.
Hyde.
Yeah, they traded Hyde to the Jags.
I think the common denominator on there, Kevin, is none of them were particularly good teammates.
Yeah.
And had been around for too many of the losses.
I also think Baker has quite a voice right now in there,
which is kind of amazing for where he is in his career. He's kind of I would suspect if he's not the leader of that team, he's amongst the 2 or 3 best leaders of that team.
Yeah,
along with Garrett or and some of the other guys on defense.
But I mean, let's go back to the acquisitions. Let's go back to the guys who were traded for or signed in free agency, which is new. This is a new thing, right? These are sort of game manager quarterbacks. That's what Smith and Cousins and Bradford and Keenum were, and Taylor. That's what these guys are. Bridgewater obviously just got weeded out because of an injury.
If you're better than that, you're not ever available.
You're not leaving. You're not leaving. So the point is it working? It's a small sample size. It's 14 weeks for a lot of these guys. It's a small sample size. But what should we expect from them next year? Is Kirk Cousins going to be a better version of himself on this Minnesota team next year?
No.
Nobody's going.
I think this was the best team he could have been dropped into.
So what was the better move? What was the better move?
Well, I think at this point, as you sit here, you say the better move was they should have stuck with Case Keenum,
who's on this list,
and
is not going to make the playoffs with the Denver Broncos.
Right.
So does changing teams just torpedo your career as a quarterback?
I think to some degree, there's 2 fronts with a quarterback being dropped into a team. The team dynamic part of it, you're the leader. You coming in out of nowhere. You have to learn the guys. You have to understand your role, and just the fact that in your first year in a new offense with new personnel, it's never going to be as good as it is in your third year with that. I think that's the nature of the quarterback position.
The 3 off the top of my mind that have worked. The 3 that
changing teams.
2 of them won Super Bowls. Kurt Warner and Peyton Manning. Right?
Yep.
We're talking about Hall of Famers.
Yep.
Okay.
Rich Gannon was the one that comes to mind when Kansas City to the Raiders, and they went to the Super Bowl under Chucky. No, it wasn't under Chucky. It was the other guy. Who was the coach of the Raiders there?
Oh, I don't know.
Was that Bill Callahan
yes.
at the time?
Wasn't Callahan the coach?
Was it really?
I think so.
Yeah, he might have been.
Who did Gruden win with?
Well, you're on Brad Johnson, right? Minnesota to Tampa, right? So there's, it doesn't happen often, but it can happen with players.
You're just asking a lot of that position to come into a team in its first year and just assume that everything is going to work because it's as much the off the field stuff with a quarterback as it is the on the field stuff.
Here's why I wanted to get here, because if it's just that he needs more time, I'm not sure this is a league that can do that anymore.
Not anymore.
Right? I mean, you're going to lose wide receivers and running backs, and he's going to lose. Kirk Cousins is going to lose his offensive coordinator. It's going to happen. John DeFilippo is going to be a head coach of somebody,
or they're going to fire him after this year.
One of 2, right? But then isn't that even more tantalizing for the Browns? No. Look, it's going to happen. He's going to be in a whole new offense next year.
Right?
Yeah. So what is the right conversation here?
The right conversation.
Don't pay the
is
guy $84 million.
Draft and develop.
Right.
Draft and develop.
Right.
Live through the first year. Hope the second year gets you. Takes big strides, gets you on the brink of the playoffs, and by your third year, you should be if you're a top 10 drafted quarterback, you should be a top 10 NFL quarterback.
That's always going to be the conversation. Right. That's the easy way to do this. But shouldn't the other conversation be never swing big? Like Minnesota
define swinging big in free agency. You mean?
How did Minnesota win last year?
Defense.
No. They won with a $2 million version of Case Keenum.
Okay, I got what you're saying.
Right? And the Eagles won with a $700,000 version of Nick Foles.
Right.
You shouldn't have to swing big if you're acquiring. right?
Okay, let me ask you a question about San Francisco 49ers then.
Okay.
They swung big for Garoppolo. Got hurt.
Isn't the jury still out?
And the jury is out.
Isn't
right?
he the perfect end case for this conversation? Like, if he works, it's a little bit different because he
looked
really
great
never had an
last
opportunity.
year. Let's say that. He looked great last year.
Great. He did. He looked great, and they've built a nice little team there. But by the time he gets back next year, right?
It's not the same team anymore.
Yeah.
Garcon's going to be gone. I don't know where Marquise Goodwin's going to stand, in terms of health. They're going to dump some players. They're going to dump some players next year.
So what you're saying is that the league requires that you have immediate impact, but the position never leads to immediate impact.
It's almost like it has to all click at once.
Yeah, but how often does that happen?
The Browns just did it. And I think the Browns should be a team to watch right now. Like, the Browns did it the right way. They said, you're going to work for us, you're going to work for us, you're going to work for us. Let's drop in Baker Mayfield and make this thing work. I think there's a real good chance that the Browns can go from here. Go. Especially with Pittsburgh looking like they look.
Yeah.
Right?
Could they sneak in the
Complete
playoffs?
opposite.
Could they sneak in the playoffs this year?
The Browns?
Yeah.
They're in the hunt, and I just heard this on the radio coming in. Pittsburgh's a half game away from being out.
Yeah.
If Baltimore wins next week and they lose, they're out of the playoffs with 1 week to go. Well, that's incredible. They're leading their division right now.
How much cap space? All right, I'm looking at $54 million in cap.
Cleveland?
That's what they have right now.
Yeah.
I'm looking for 19.
Well, that rolls over.
What's
So,
that? Yeah, it rolls over, right, in cap space.
They're in great shape
They should
to
be
acquire whatever they need.
Yes.
They're in great shape to acquire it.
and there'll be a destination with a new head coach. You think? I mean,
I would think.
I can't see them keeping Greg Williams. as
I
the
don't
head coach.
either.
No, there's no need to.
But
maybe
if they make a run to week 17 and are in the playoff hunt, it'll be
just
a
pay him to be the
possibility.
defensive coordinator then. Pay
Right.
him more to be the defensive guy. Right?
He's not going.
Great, that's not really
Nobody,
good
That's not his
style.
style.
nobody else is hiring Greg Williams.
Nobody
else.
You know how many people said that a couple of years ago?
Oh, come on.
Hey,
We've
if
been around this rat
it's a
race too
trendy
long.
league, Mike. If people think that he was the one partly responsible for the late season push, then somebody else is going to say, "I want that guy."
And he'll believe he'll get hired,
Yeah, oh yeah,
right?
yeah, oh yeah. We know that about Greg.
Is Baker getting his college coach?
Boy, again, if they continue to play well and make a run towards the playoffs, that would make Lincoln Riley think long and hard about it, wouldn't it? Because now he's stepping into a situation where
Right.
he can win right off the bat.
Well, it also depends what happens coming up here in a few weeks, right? And how things
Yeah, of
figure
course.
out for him,
Of
right?
course.
If they can win the national championship, see ya.
Yeah, maybe.
I would
I
think so.
think so.
I would think so.
I'm going.
I
with
would
my
think
guy.
if they can win that, if they can beat Alabama, that's enough for him.
For the first week?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
and we're all hoping for that, right?
Yeah,
Sorry,
I think we
Alabama
kinda
fans.
Are. I think we kind of are. Yeah,
I just want to see somebody new in the championship game.
yeah.
I just let's
Which, by the way, I'm happy for Hurts. By the way, what a cool story,
awesome.
right?
For the second year in a row.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, just that's a
Could have
cool,
easily bailed on that. The new rules could have made it. He
Yes.
could have easily walked away and retained his year of eligibility and transferred somewhere else. And that I think we see that a lot with kids getting impetuous and you don't like me, I'm going somewhere else. It happened with the Clemson quarterback. Good for him. Good for him for sticking it out.
All right, let's put a bow in this quarterback conversation with this. The reason I wanted to really dive into this wasn't so much about how bad these guys look, right? Because I think they're up against it. In either case, whether you're a rookie coming in or you're a quarterback changing teams and being thrown right into a situation like Cousins and Smith were, it's that this is going to be a big deal in the next 24 months. Because you're going to have a lot of franchises who have had quarterbacks set in stone that are going to have to give up on that, whether that's through retirement or just, like Roethlisberger next year. I don't know what they do there. If he wants to play, do they allow him to come back? I mean, he's throwing
They don't have any
interceptions
choice.
in the end zone.
They don't have any choice. He's having a bad stretch right now. He's still one of the best quarterbacks in the league.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Is that team good enough to win, though?
Their
'Cause if they're not
defense
good
has-
enough to
their
win,
defense
then you
hasn't
rip
been
it
good
off.
for 2 years. Since Ryan Shazier got hurt,
right.
their defense has not been good.
Listen, they've been playing without Connor the last couple weeks.
Yeah, but they...
And when has Roethlisberger been great without an awesome running game?
Yeah.
Hasn't, right?
Right.
I don't.
Hasn't
I
been.
don't. That's to me. That's not a negative, Kevin. I mean, that you
Well,
got.
I'm just talking about,
how many quarterbacks in the league have been great without a good
but-
running game.
Well, you're saying he just...
Tom Brady
He
has
just
been
needs
great.
that back.
I
If
think
he's
he needs
got
a running game
he's gonna
back,
be fine.
yes.
You're saying
Yeah.
he's going to be fine if there's a running game.
That threat of a running game, he's got a great receiver in Tony. And listen, I'm not trying to take anything away from Roethlisberger's career. I'm just talking about the now. I'm talking about right now. And they know he's going to throw the football because they don't have anybody to run the football because Connor's been hurt.
I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say this. There's a very strong chance Antonio Brown is going to demand a trade this offseason. There's a very strong chance of this.
To the Browns?
To anyone that'll throw him the ball 10 times a game.
Right.
And
that's all he cares about.
And where he sees a legitimate future, because I'm not sure many Steelers right now see a 3 to 4 year situation out there right now.
To your point, Kevin, the Steelers are one of those franchises that has never really taken that step back. They've never they've always reloaded and never rebuilt.
That's right.
And to their credit for that, it's not easy to do. Is this the time that they have to do that?
Well, they rebuilt when they drafted Roethlisberger.
I mean, that's a long time ago. Maybe my memory is foggy.
Who the hell was their quarterback?
But
does that align with Mike Tomlin?
that was Tommy Maddox was their quarterback at the time, and they were good. Their defense
Actually,
was.
he made the playoffs, didn't they?
Remember,
Yeah.
Roethlisberger won a Super Bowl his rookie year.
That's right.
What?
Wow. How did you pull
Tommy
that?
Maddox?
I was trying
former
research team
UFL MVP Tommy Maddox, Las
LSU
Vegas Locomotive or whatever he was.
Yeah.
No, UCLA guy.
Was he UCLA?
UCLA,
I
yeah.
thought he transferred to LSU.
I don't think so.
Or transferred from... I have to look this up.
Look it up.
I am going to look this up here. You sure it was Tommy Maddox? Tommy Maddox was there.
I believe Tommy Maddox was the starter when Roethlisberger was drafted, and he got hurt, and Roethlisberger came in, and their defense and Jerome Bettis were so dominant, he was throwing the ball 12 times a game, and they won a Super Bowl.
Yeah, hell, they won with Bubby Brister.
Quick thought here. Let's just assume, because there's a good assumption on many of these players, that Blake Bortles, Joe Flacco, Jameis Winston, Derek Carr,
Different teams.
maybe Eli Manning,
all with different teams.
could be available in free agency.
Yeah, you're right. That whole list, you're right.
Are Kirk Cousins and Alex Smith pushing pause to any team out there?
They should be.
I think so, right?
They should be. Yeah. Boy, that's a crazy list, isn't it? I mean, but again, the common denominator in that list is towards the ends of their careers, where they're not the same players they used to be, except for Bortles. And again, is a 35-year-old guy like that better than drafting a guy and playing a rookie right off the bat? Because it's one or the other now in the league. Rookies don't get time to develop and mature. You draft them and you play them. So they're 22-year-old starting quarterbacks as rookies, or you're starting a guy in his 12th year.
All right, Tommy Maddox, you're right. It was UCLA. He's from Louisiana. So that's where I was thinking LSU. He was drafted in the first round, pick number 25. Denver Broncos. Yep. That is correct. Yeah. Then
replaced John Elway.
Then went to the Rams, and then the Giants, Atlanta Falcons. Then
they don't have the UFL in there, do they?
They have the New Jersey Red Dogs. That was arena. He played arena ball, I believe.
Yes.
Nice.
LA Extreme.
Yeah,
I think that's
was it
arena
the
ball.
XFL, or was it? I think it may have been the XFL that he played in Las Vegas, didn't he?
He was.
It was in one. It was either the UFL or the XFL.
XFL.
Man,
that's
this guy
the LA
is
Extreme.
Traveled.
The the New Jersey Red Dogs were in the Arena Football League. And matter of fact, I remember because I was calling arena football games for the Buffalo Destroyers in 2000. So I remember Tommy Maddox playing for the New Jersey Red Dogs. Then he went to the XFL, the LA Extreme, then to the Steelers, comeback player of the year in 2002 for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Man.
It's an incredible journey for Tommy Maddox, which totally throws... Well, actually, doesn't throw Mike's thing. All these different teams, but he was a first-round pick. So.
But he was never highly paid either.
Draft a quarterback.
So that is the point. Well, he's kind of the Case Keenum, right?
Well,
he's kind of Case Keenum.
Yeah,
Case Keenum got tossed
check
around.
out the arena leagues for your next starter.
Yeah, he got tossed around a little bit there. You mentioned Warner never got paid, ever.
There's two Super Bowl champions who played quarterback in the Arena Football League,
true.
right? Tommy Maddox and Kurt Warner.
And neither of them ever got paid money in the NFL.
Right.
They got thrown around like rag dolls because nobody believed in them.
It's really interesting, though, what your point...
How could they? He's an Arena Football League guy.
Yeah, it's a really interesting point about where quarterbacking has become. Where is it now? It's hang on to these guys until they're 42 years old, or draft a rookie and play him, and if he doesn't have success in 2 years, get rid of him.
It's going to be a nervous conversation soon.
There's no middle class. Who are the next Phillip Rivers and Roethlisbergers and Breeze and Brady? Who are the next guys that are going to play till they're 40?
Well, we've got to.
Are they ever going to get a chance to do
I think
that?
There's a strong, 2-3 year class here that's in the league that are pushing these guys out. But no, I don't know that they'll play till 35 anymore. Right? I mean, is Rodgers in decline right now? Or is this just a mess of a franchise?
I think it's a mess right now in Green Bay.
I think there's a chance he might be in a little bit of decline.
I think there's a little decline there. Honestly, I do.
He's 34? Going on 35?
They all can't be Tom Brady.
No.
They all can't be.
I think that's the point. Or Breeze.
Or Breeze. They all can't be playing as well at 38 as they were at 28. It just doesn't happen.
I mean, Russell Wilson looked kind of old last night to me. I hate saying that.
Did look old on the 50-yard run down the sideline.
But when he got up, he kind of looked like we would look, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh my god!
By the way,
what did I just do?
After that run, like you saw the Vikings just stack the box because they knew it was going to be a handoff because Russell Wilson's like,
he sort of resembled me after a sprint after my daughter or something I'm going to regret that tomorrow. Right? But he's not old. He's not old yet.
No,
he's
28.
He's 30. He's going to be 30.
I think with modern medicine and the Brady diet, no, I think these guys are capable of playing longer in their careers. Hey, look at Andrew Luck.
Yeah, but
all right, but look at Andrew Luck, the shoulder injury, and it took a while to come back from it. And Andrew Luck is, he's got the most passing attempts this year in the NFL. So, I think when they know they have a guy, they'll stick with a guy even through injury because they know it's hard to find the guy.
I agree with that, and I hope that remains. I love mini dynasties that in these leagues. I do. I always will love that. I'm worried they're in jeopardy. I'm worried we're going to see Patrick Mahomes have 8 great years, and then the current Kansas City GM basically say, all right, we got to get cheaper. We can't pay him $200 million at age 32. Can't do it. I'm worried that's going to happen. I'm worried Matt Ryan's contract's going to bust out next year. I'm worried Cousins has already busted out. I'm worried that Rodgers is going to look 45 years old in 2 years, and they still owe him $40 million. I'm worried that baseball's bust of these massive contracts that happened after Pujols and those monster deals, A-Rod, is going to come to football, and that's going to mean that veterans are going to get pushed out, and that stinks.
All right, let's move on. So you mentioned baseball. Let's move on to the team that loves to spend money.
Yeah,
the New York Yankees.
There's a lot of news right now. I don't know if you've read this morning.
I didn't know. What's the latest this morning?
Everything's about the Mets on this podcast, by the way.
Oh, okay.
And there are Mets-Yankees rumors right now, pretty substantial ones. And it's not good for the Mets. Shocking. So the Yankees have done some damage already. Let's sort of go down the list. The Yankees have acquired a starting pitcher from Seattle and James Paxton, which was, I think, a phenomenal move. They have dabbled in these major free agents. I mean, they're certainly listening. It sounds, though...
Talking about Harper, Machado.
Sounds like
right?
Harper's out. And it sounds like basically they tried to do their due diligence and maybe trading Giancarlo Stanton, moving some guys, maybe getting somebody to take that Ellsbury contract off of them.
So people listening right now, wait a second, they just got Stanton, and they're trying to trade him already.
Yeah, but this is forward thinking from Cashman. This really is good stuff, and I don't mean to to discount any of the moves the Yankees have made or even the ones they're considering here, which we'll get to. But it sounds like they're out on Harper because they don't want to fit they don't want to have too much of a surplus in a situation where they would have to make him play first base. They don't want to do that. They don't want to sign a guy to $300 million where half of that contract he's playing first base.
Because they're already paying a guy that amount of money to DH.
Exactly. Yeah, they've had years where they've had too many DHs on that team. That happens a lot in the American League. So I give them credit for that. It sounds like they're letting Philadelphia and Chicago outbid themselves on Harper. It does sound like they're in a Machado. And it sounds like all the concerns about his effort and his situation with the Dodgers in the playoffs and all that have essentially been looked away.
Easy to ignore when you get
a lot of teams.
When you get locked into something like that.
There's a lot of teams in on Manny Machado right now, more than I thought, honestly. But I did say this.
How many?
I'd say there's more than 10 right now.
Real? Wow.
Yeah, there's a lot. He is. It appears that he and his camp have come down on the I have to play shortstop, which turned a lot of teams that have shortstops off. It seems
third base being.
It seems like he's willing to do that, even though I think he will end up playing shortstop for somebody.
By the way, most GMs telling his agent, look, if A-Rod could play third, you can play third.
That's right. That's right. Look at the money he made and the money you're about to make. So you take wherever you play wherever you got here.
Yeah. And he's dating J-Lo. Anyhow.
Oh, yeah. All-timer. Look at
By the way, you ought to put up on SpotTrack.com the career earnings of the women of A-Rod.
It comes up a lot. Women, there's a lot of these athletes that have some powerful.
How about
women
a
out there.
top couples salary list?
Well, Brady wins that one too.
Brady
Brady
right?
wins that one too.
Yeah, but I'm just thinking real quick. The women of A-Rod, Madonna's probably all time on the earnings list.
Yeah.
Of his girlfriends.
You could just do a comparison of A-Rod versus Jeter and really stir the pot.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good
Anyway,
point.
back on track here, sir. Back to baseball.
Are there any commons
Look
on
at
that list?
Machado. Oof.
Come on, you were thinking it. Anyhow.
I said this to you guys a few weeks ago, and I think I'm still right. Machado's not getting $300 million. For all the reasons we talked about. There was some off-the-field stuff. People just don't want to go longer and higher on Machado than they would on a Harper. So I think that's going to happen. It's going to come down to maybe a 6-year deal, maybe even less. If it is the Yankees don't need him for 8-10 years. They just don't. This is a team that's going to be fluid, which is to Cashman's credit. They are moving players more than they've ever done. It's no more of this buy the jersey and fall in love with this guy for 15 years. The Yankees have finally come around to that. Those days are done, and that's a good thing. But I do think if it's a shorter term deal with maybe a little bit more impact, like $35 million a year, I think Machado might end up getting. He's going to be a great fit for a team that has assets. They can move Miguel Andujar, which I don't think they should do, but I think they can do to get themselves a starter. So I do think the Yankees might be the favorites right now for Manny Machado, but I still think, and there's two teams now involved, I still think the Phillies and the Cubs could just come out with a checkbook and say, Bryce Harper and Manny Machado, you're both with us.
Wow.
Both teams could do that right now.
Or could the one that loses out on Harper be the one?
Yes, it could still split one or the other, but I do think if the Cubs brought in both of those guys right now, they immediately turn back to, because look, the Cardinals have made moves in that division. So the Cubs are sort of looking up right now. They had a down season. They're looking up at the moves the Cardinals have made. I think that Theo Epstein is considering being very aggressive with both those two guys, and if that means overpaying for both, look out. But let's get to the news of the day, which is the Yankees and the Mets are in serious winter meeting discussions right now to send Noah Syndergaard to the Yankees, which I do think Miguel Andujar would be involved, but it sounds like that the Marlins are also involved because the Mets want GT Realmuto, which would be a stud catcher, arguably the best offensive catcher in baseball. So it sounds like it's really making traction. The Yankees really want Syndergaard to be that number 3 guy in their rotation right now, which is crazy to think about if you put it all together. But it sounds like there's a lot of traction on that move, and the crosstown teams in New York are about to make a blockbuster deal. But that really, I don't love this for the Mets. Any move where you lose a starting pitcher and gain a catcher, I think, is troublesome.
That will prompt the great lists that always come out, which is guys who have played for both the Yankees and the Mets.
That's
always
right.
a good list, and it might. How long is the list of Yankees Mets trades?
Yeah,
Doesn't happen very often.
It's not too often. Generally, it's indirect that the Mets give up a guy and then he finds his way back to the Yankees.
Right. That's
via
generally
big money.
Most of the guys who have played for both teams have made a stop in between.
But that's sort of the final point I want to make here, which is the Yankees. I mentioned they've sort of changed their ways. The Yankees aren't looking to go out and sign Bryce Harper at $400 million because that's a sexy move. They're using the trade more than any team in baseball right now, and they've been doing that since about 2 deadlines ago. They really ramped it up. Cashman has really caught on to the idea of gaining assets, building your team through the farm system, but then moving on because it happens so often that young guys win World Series. It just doesn't happen, right? Houston's an anomaly. You just don't see that happen in baseball. So he knows that if he wants to remain relevant and a postseason team, which is the only way the Yankees are worth a damn, right, to baseball or to that city. If the Yankees aren't in the postseason, it's just an awful year. And the only way to do that is to have veterans who can take you there throughout a long season. He's been brilliant in being able to showcase young talent and then shop them and bring in guys who can make an impact right away. And Syndergaard would be that next piece. So I give Cashman credit for the kinds of move he's at least trying to make and the ones he has already made.
They've swapped 15 players since 1996, and Paul is still smarting from the Kenny Greer trade to the Mets for Frank Banana.
There's really only one notable trade of the 15. There's only one
2001, right?
With names with names that are like that a baseball fan would know. 2001.
Yes.
Most of them are.
Give me the name.
It was outfielder for infielder.
Outfielder for infielder, and they are both significant, long-time veteran major leaguers.
And one of them was married to probably somebody who's earned more money in her career than he has earned in his career.
I'm drawing a blank here. The Mets sent an outfielder to the Yankees.
Yankees traded somebody to the
Mets
for an infielder. And this infielder, I'll give you one more hint. This infielder had a history with a former Mets pitcher.
That's right.
Nolan Ryan.
Got punched out by a former Mets.
Oh, you gave him too big of a hint there.
Right.
All right.
Is this Olerud?
2001, the Yankees sent David Justice to the Mets for Robin Ventura.
Ventura. Ooh.
Yeah. Other than that, it's mostly
few
nondescript. Yeah.
And Halle Berry's.
Of course.
Yes.
Of course.
Okay.
Mostly nondescript names in Mike Stanton for Felix Heredia in 2004.
Well,
those are names, other than that, not much.
So this would be a big deal.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. Only 15 times.
I like it.
Yeah. Well, since 96. I mean, they've had, right?
96 no, 15 times all time.
66. Oh, all time. Okay.
Yeah, all time.
Wow.
The first trade between the two teams came in 1966. Yep.
So keep an eye on that.
All right.
Good stuff from the Yankees, though.
Yep.
All right, great. Look, we covered basketball, we covered quarterbacks, we covered baseball here. Real quick, your predictions, Mike. Where does Machado end up? Where does Harper end up?
I think Machado and the Yankees make it work. I think that's the one big signing that the Yankees end up making. I'm going to keep Harper in the Phillies. I think Harper in Philadelphia just makes a ton of sense.
Okay, but if Machado goes to the Yankees, you don't see Harper going to the Dodgers?
Or the Cubs?
No.
Somebody who doesn't reel from losing one of those guys?
I think the Cubs are going to be very aggressive. I really do think that's going to happen. The Dodgers are trying. The Dodgers seem to be taking the Yankees approach here in that they are really involved in some trade conversations with Cleveland, with Tampa, with a bunch of teams, including the Mets, by the way. But I think they end up going that route because they need to get rid of some guys. They need to get rid of Yasiel Puig and a few players, maybe even a Bellinger who maybe is on the fringe right now with that roster going forward. But, I think maybe their blockbuster moves come via trade. Chicago's going to get aggressive. We don't know about that. But, I think the Phillies just have money and the right roster for Bryce Harper who can go there and be the guy.
All right. Great stuff. Again, hey, make sure you check out the premium section at SpotTrack.com. Become a premium member, ad-free experience, and all the other bonuses, including the Total Sum podcast and much more from Mike and the team at SpotTrack.com. Be sure to give us a rating wherever you download the podcast from, whether it be Spotify, whether it be iTunes, wherever you get the pod. Give us a rating, and it's the holiday season, so hopefully you're in the giving spirit for that. For Mike Giannetti and Paul Peck, I'm Kevin Sylvester. Thanks for listening to the SpotTrack.com podcast.